Right now, our hearts are with Christy and the entire Hartin family. Her father, a legend here on the South Plains for so many reasons, has died. Christy shared the heartbreaking news that John Hartin passed away this morning. Many know him from his pioneering work in music education in Levelland. He created the world's first commercial music program at South Plains College, which marked 50 years of teaching the next generation of musicians in October, a celebration that he was able to attend. For that work, he was inducted into the West Texas Walk of Fame in 1998. After retirement at South Plains, he opened the music supply store on the Levelland Square and continued to instill the love of music to many who stopped by. As Christy said in her tribute to her father online, his memory will live on in the thousands of lives he touched and the songs he taught.